This week we take you on a tour of the Doukhobor Discovery Center here in Ootischenia.
Come along as we find out how the Doukhobors were living a self-sufficient life in villages and in communities.
Here we are at the Doukhobor Discovery Center.
A lot of the Doukhobors, when they were in prison, they were only given bread and water, and they did survive off of that, and that's why they believe that those are the main things that you only need in life. Now the Doukhobors, they obviously believe in a toil and peaceful life, as that would be their somewhat motto, if you would like to say. Another thing that you're going to see around here is doves, like the one on my t-shirt, or even on the barn, and we actually have a statue of it now. So we're going to take you to the dome, which is, this one is based off of what it would look like their living space. Then we have our second dome, which is our AV dome at the moment. Now we changed it for our museum purposes, so it has a timeline, textiles, it even has a 1-hour documentary of the history of the Doukhobors. Now these ones are just replicated houses, but the bricks are repurposed from original Doukhobor homes.
Was there a village here originally?
Yes.
In this area? Okay.
Yes.
Spot. Okay, so it just kind of
When the
rebuilt.
Doukhobors, Peter V. Verrigan was already talking to an individual from BC about moving here, and the land that they speak of is this one right here.
This one right here. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So the Doukhobors, when they came to, obviously they came to Halifax, took trains, and then to Saskatchewan. Now, the individuals that stayed in Saskatchewan are known as the independent Doukhobors. And then the individuals that came to BC were known as the Orthodox. Now, that Orthodox group ended up splitting halfway into a third group known as the Sons of Freedom. The Sons of Freedom went through a lot, and that's going to be, we're going to cover that spread, a lot.
Okay.
But here is what a kitchen would look like. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be as clustered. We have our pièce over here, and that would fit up to 75 loaves of bread.
Whoa, wow.
Yeah, and actually, you can see that we have a ladder there. The oldest and the youngest, normally in the winter time, would actually sleep up there.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
That is a jam jar from the Casey Jam Factory in Brilliant.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Sadly, that got destroyed in 1943. You know that the Doukhobors lived very communally, so we have a giant table here, and they would have either a bowl of borscht or whatever they were eating that day and pass it along the table. A building like this would fit up to 30 to 50 individuals. This is, to me, my favorite part. This is the celebration of the Doukhobor women.
Oh.
So we have Luperia Tomakova, the first woman Doukhobor leader, and she mentored Peter V. Verrigan.
Oh.
And so that's how he got into leadership, because she gave it to him, and then he kind of just passed it along his family line.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you did not want to mess with her when you were a man. She used to lock the men in the chicken coop.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
Now, there's going to be a few things. You're going to notice that the hallways are quite large.
Yeah.
So, these rooms are quite small, and so the children sometimes would actually sleep outside in the hallway, or up in the attic, which is just past the door.
Oh, neat.
But is there two other things that you've noticed since you walked through this house?
Two other things.
Why are there no doors?
That's one of them. So they actually didn't put up doors, so then the heat could circulate into every room.
Okay.
So they would put curtains for privacy.
Right.
And then there's one more thing that you haven't seen in this house. Something that you would use every single day.
Every single day. Oh man.
A washroom.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
So their washroom was separate. It was at our house.
Oh.
They have a banyo and everything, but that again was a whole different thing. That's their bathhouse.
Okay.
No washroom in there.
Okay,
So every single thing is separate. So the reasoning, one of the reasons why they picked and moved this land is because these mountains around us reminded them of the Caucasus Mountains.
Similar. That's so interesting. Crochet from hemp, eh? So they did grow the hemp. Wow. That's really, really neat. That's one thing that surprised me, is how much they use the hemp fibers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that they were able to grow it. That's neat. Cool.
So the swinging cradle we have there, or the hanging cradle, they would use it for newborns, and the second they started to move around, that is when they would put them on the floor.
Okay.
Obviously for safety precautions.
Yeah.
That one, it has actually a timestamp in 1911. So we hang them here, obviously, so then they can keep their color.
Okay.
We don't want them because they're so old. There's a lot of history here. We have the event burning of arms, or burning of firearms. This was in 1895. I believe it happened in 3 places, but this should be in the Caucasus Mountains. We actually had the first group to arrive to Canada. They did come in December of 1898, and then came a month later in 1899 of January.
Wow.
So they took 4 boats to come to Halifax, and then took a few trains to Saskatchewan. And then we have an actual photo of the women pulling the plows and the men pulling the wagon.
Yeah, that's really neat.
So around 1902, they actually got rid of all their animals.
Oh.
And that was because they thought that they were taking advantage slash abusing their animals by using them for work. Now, Tolstoy actually had to tell them and sit them down and say, that's not the case. You guys are working together. You guys need each other. And so the Doukhobors had to rethink everything that they did and get their animals back. Now this, and I can definitely say, because obviously my grandparents were the ones that lived through it, is imagine you either being the child or you being the mother, and your child is taken away from you in the middle of the night, and without even being told what's going on, and those children were taken away to New Denver to go to school because the Sons of Freedom didn't want their kids going to school. They wanted them to learn the real Doukhobor life. So my grandparents were one of those children that got taken away during the nighttime, and they decided. And as a mother, you would protest. You would get really mad at the government for taking away your children, and they did it in a way that you wouldn't see nowadays. But they decided that if you want to take everything and you want to take my clothes, I'll give you. You can have my clothes. And they stripped down. And they burnt all the houses naked. A lot of people come into the museums talking about the Sons of Freedom because those are the only individuals that they know because they made a statement.
Yeah.
But they don't know the whole story behind it.
Exactly.
Our brilliant suspension bridge that was built by the Doukhobors. If you ask a Doukhobor, it's called the Doukhobor Bridge. Rightfully so.
Right?
But actually, people actually used to be able to drive over it. And so it was a one-way. But when they built it, they actually had signs on both ends stating that no one could cross with any firearms.
Oh, neat.
But and then over here, we have Peter P. there.
Oh, there we go. Wow.
Quite a large man.
Yeah, holy moly.
And this is based off of the choirs. And you would know that the choirs are very important to them.
It's the sound. It's incredible, the sound that they make.
It's something. It's an experience.
You, right? Yeah, it's really.
It's an
intense.
experience and a half because it's all a cappella. There's no music, and
Yeah.
when you have the women and the men singing together, it's beautiful.
an amazing tour. I can't believe how much information we got through that. It was incredible. Everything we looked at, there was just so much.
history.
Yeah, we could have spent
amazing,
all
yeah.
day in there. And thank you to our tour guide Alex. She was so patient with us and all our questions and us wanting to poke around here and there, and she was incredible. I thought it was interesting that my great grandparents always had wool socks and wool clothing, and wool was really important part of their clothes. But there were no stories of sheep, there were no stories of them keeping sheep or anything like that. So I always wondered how they were getting the wool and why it was such a big part of their clothing. And Alex had mentioned that they probably trade. So they themselves didn't keep sheep in Ootischenia, where we are here, because it just the soil wasn't good for raising the
large number of sheep.
Exactly. It's better for vegetables and stuff. So they would have traded what they could grow here of fruit and grains and things like that with other communities that had sheep and had the wool. That's how they would get their wool to make their clothing, which I thought was really cool.
It
Smart.
was also really neat. I did not know that people did this in the past, but they were evidence that they were using hemp fiber and flax. They were actually growing flax and hemp for fiber. And
the oils.
And many different uses. Everything that they grow, they used whatever aspect they could. Of course, they used
multiple uses.
Yeah.
And also in their domes. Again, we had the tour in the dome. How well they had designed the domes to house so many people. Like Alex mentioned, up to 30 to 50 people of kids and all the way grandparents, great grandparents, everybody. And their design of the building was so well done so everyone could be comfortable, and I thought it was really cool. So they wouldn't have had electricity. I thought it was cool that they designed the upstairs or most of the dome with windows, a lot of windows, nice and tall, and they would place their domes in areas where the sunrise and sunset would let in the most light inside the domes, and the rooms wouldn't have doors. And again, this was to allow for air circulation.
Yeah.
They would have curtains for privacy, but you can open that or whatever for air circulation, and also let in all the lights from the large windows. So I thought, again, really simple things, but not simple. It's really creative that they do that.
And it's really cool that this Doukhobor Discovery Center is actually built on a Doukhobor village.
Yeah.
So the buildings here were actually original. Some of them are the original buildings that were in the village.
Recreated.
Yeah, and I thought the layout was really neat. The way they laid out all the buildings, they created this space in the middle of all the buildings. It's like a sheltered area. We got a tour of the banya as well, and we're actually looking at building one. So we also this week got a really cool tour of another banya.
Yes.
Your uncle did a
great uncle or Walter. Yeah.
So we got a tour of his banya as well. So we've seen two so far, two different design. Well, of course, this one here was for a really much larger community, so it's a bigger one. The one that Walter built is pretty large as well. We are still thinking of what size we want to build, but we know one of the things that we need before winter is definitely banya.
A big question we had was how did the villages in Doukhobor get water to irrigate the crops into their houses? And we found the answer at the Doukhobor Discovery Center. We learned that they make stave pipes, so wooden pipes out of wood that they wrapped metal wire around, and they would dig just shallow trenches and place the pipes in that, and that's how they would get water from place to place. So so that answers that question. We weren't sure, but we still wonder what they did in winter. So was it warm enough that if they kept water flowing, they still had water to their houses, or how did they do that? Because it's still in Doukhobor, the furthest village north, so away from the creek. It's quite a ways from the creek, so to haul water in buckets or anything didn't make sense. So that's another question we still have.
Well, another thing I found really interesting was Ryan at the Doukhobor Discovery Center pointed us to an article from Y. Plotnikov. Yeah, so she wrote an article many years ago about how the Doukhobors were doing something that I think in the article she called it double cropping. Basically, they were growing trees, and then in the spaces between the trees, they were growing other crops like strawberries or grains, annuals, things like vegetables, and that gives them annual income as they're waiting for the trees to grow. And this is what I think nowadays is more known as alley cropping.
Yeah.
It's popular as alley cropping, and a lot of people claim it, like in the 90s. They're like, oh yeah, they came up with this brilliant concept of alley cropping. You just plant animals between rows of trees. This is greatest. We're gonna change everything and we're gonna fix everything, right? But this was like so known. They didn't even have a name for it because
that's what they did.
That's what they did.
How
Yeah,
they grew
just
things.
like, okay, we plant some trees. Wait, we got some empty space. We're gonna wait 3 years. Okay, might as well start planting some strawberries in there or some vegetables in there, right?
Potatoes,
so,
yeah.
But that's probably a practice that they brought with them because they're still, when they were in Russia, they were still practicing agriculture and growing fruit trees and vegetables and things like that. So it was something that probably was just known and natural to them. They didn't even have to call it a name or claim that, oh, I made this. So that's actually something that we are definitely going to incorporate. So we're still trying to figure out the details, the distancing. We're going to take some measurements on how they space the trees. At least we have enough things left here that we could probably figure those things out and hopefully use some of the knowledge that they left behind.
So we went to the Doukhobor Discovery Center to get more information about agriculture and how the Doukhobors lived self-sufficiently and things like that. But their history is so interesting. We went down a rabbit hole and just started learning about all these other aspects of Doukhobor history. And after visiting the center and talking with Ootischenia, we learned about other harder parts of the Doukhobor history. How that when the Doukhobors came to Canada, they were a lot different than other settlers in that they wanted to live self-sufficiently and they wanted to work with others and be at peace, just practice their agriculture and provide for their community. But that was against the colonial agenda that the government had at that time. And so they were really hard on the Doukhobors and found them a threat to the Canadian government.
Yeah, from the stories we heard, it's clear that the government was really afraid that the Doukhobors were succeeding in their way of life, and they felt that as a threat. So there were many instances of brutal treatment. They took the children away from the families. They put the men in jail for many years, or they took their women and children away and put them in horrible camps. So many horrible treatment of people, which the story of the Doukhobors is so inspiring. They never gave up and they just kept going and to stick to the way of the life that they believed in instead of trying to change. And so that resistance is still alive today.
Yeah.
And it's very inspiring. For us to hear all those stories.
Yeah.
And if you have stories from your family that you want to share, please feel free to use this as an opportunity. We want to learn as well, so please share your stories, anything that has been passed down to you. As we pursue our journey, we will try to dig into this more.
Yeah, all aspects of the history. Yes. In our next video, we'll be looking at the soil results that we had that we got back. We had sent away some soil tests. We had a lot of people asking about the quality of the soil here and any contamination. So we'll be reached out to Kent Watson, a soil scientist out of Kamloops, and hopefully get an interview with him and look into those results, get them explained to us a bit better.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching another update from us, and please feel free to share the video as usual, and we really appreciate it. And stay in touch, and we will keep you posted.
And send any stories and photos that you feel that you want to share. Anything, more the better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.